Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Positivity Podcast on Anfield Index. My name is Matt McElroy, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. I'm joined by Lubo Murkoff and Paul Jenkins. How are you guys doing?
Good, I'm good. Another lazy weekend here in New Jersey. I watched a little bit of the Chelsea Borough game, and they went up 2-0, and I turned it off, and I came to do the podcast. So it's all good.
Awesome.
And good evening from a nice sunny but windy Northern Ireland evening here. I'm doing well. Same as you, Lubo. Actually, I watched a bit of the Borough Chelsea game, and then I was like, dear, we're not going to get the result that we wanted. So let's just turn that off and come and do a nice positivity podcast and get myself set up for a nice weekend.
That's right.
Wonderful. So as we get started, I want to note that we are recording live on Discord. If you have not already joined the Anfield Index Discord, please be sure to do so. It's a real fun part of the internet where we have some good conversations about Liverpool and other things. So those of you who are listening live can ask questions as we go. Just be sure to tag me when you put the questions in the chat. So our opening question comes from Old King Cole, and that is, what is your favorite goal for the season? Lubo, do you want to get us started?
I will, and actually, thank you, Matt, for sending that video with all of Liverpool's goals this season, and there were some excellent ones. And I was trying to decide, and actually, the one that is probably my favorite for just what it meant, and then I know it's probably a little bit of a strange choice, but actually, it was the penalty that Big Kev Kelleher scored against Chelsea in the final. Just emotionally, I was so invested in him scoring. And just my son was there watching, my wife was there watching. It was just so intense, and he scored such a great goal. And the fact that Kepa missed right after that, and that meant that was the winning goal of a trophy. To me, incidentally, I think that's my goal of the season right now.
Yeah, that was one that I had in mind as well. Paul, what was your goal of the season so far?
So yeah, like keeping in that vein of League Cup goals, which is kind of odd given that we've seen so many good goals in the league and in the Champions League this season. I think it was like Nabakita early in the season was at Crystal Palace. He scored a cracker. Salah against City was great. I think there's any number of good goals, cracker goals, technically great goals. But for me, I think so far my favourite one was Taki Minamino against Leicester, that last minute equaliser.
Yeah.
Just the ball floated in. I think it was Milner floated the cross in, and just you thought the defender was getting his head on it. He didn't get his head on it, and then Taki's touch and finish was just like, wow, this it was a really, really great finish, and just for what that meant for the momentum of the season and kind of pushing us on to get towards that first trophy. So for me, that just at the minute, it's kind of is it the best goal that we've scored this season? No, probably not. But I just love it. It just sticks out in my head. It was kind of one of the ones where I was kind of going, yeah. Whenever we chat about it, when we looked at this question, I was like, actually, that's the one that sticks out in my head. And I know we've seen great technical ones, but I just thought, I remember at that point in time going, wow, that's a really good goal, because he's had to watch that the whole way. First touch is brilliant, gets it out of his feet, and then just puts it in the bottom corner. So, yeah, no, for me, it's Taki Minamino against Leicester, last minute equaliser.
Yeah, that was a really great goal. So after watching that compilation video that I sent you guys and like seeing all of them, I have a couple of like honorable mentions. So we had first goals from Harvey Elliott and Cade Gordon, and I thought those were really great.
Yep.
And then watching all of the goals is like every Divock Origi goal is just absolute fun, and he had some really good ones. But for me, I think like the best goal, my favorite goal was Thiago's screamer. Just the way the ball moves, and it's just like up and down and like to the side, and just
Yeah.
how he kept that one like on the line into the net. That one for me, I think, is probably the best goal all season, and that was probably my favorite.
Technically, that was insane. And I remember actually we had this discussion on Discord here about did the ball ever touch the ground, or was it just the trajectory of the way that Thiago hit through the ball that it went down and came back up again with never skimming off the surface? It was one of the laws of physics. And to this day, you'll watch the video and you're just not quite sure what happened there, but you just look at it and go, that was an insane goal.
Oh yeah, that was a great one. It just like sort of skims the top of the grass and then like goes back up and then just sort of
Yeah.
explodes into the back of the net. So good.
Yeah, perfect.
Actually, Matt, you mentioned the Divock Origi goals, and I have to say that the one that I really debated for a while was that crazy scorpion type kick. I think it was
Yeah.
against Preston, and the reason I loved it is because you look at it and you think, oh yeah, that's Divock. You just almost with Divock, he's not a great goal scorer, but he's a scorer of great goals, if you will.
Right. He doesn't score normal goals. He has to score like all bangers all the time, right?
And he's so nonchalant in the way he scores them.
That's
like
exactly right.
It's just effortless.
But when I was watching it, I'm like, only Divock could score, and that's obviously not true because there's so many great players on the team that could score. But just sort of the nonchalance, the I don't know, almost like the his overall just languid personality, the way he plays. You're like, yeah, that's the kind of goal that you expect Divock to score out of nowhere, and I just love that. But I still went with the penalty just because I don't think I've ever been as committed into a goal emotionally as I was with Big Kev's goal in the final.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was some strike. That was his Gaelic roots coming in there. Like knows how to hit a ball. It was phenomenal.
I think my favorite part about that one is the giant sigh or like breath of relief he has after he makes it. So he like the ball goes in and he sort of just turns and goes and like, oh, I did it.
Crazy.
Okay, so let's move to our second topic of discussion. We're going to look back at the results that have happened since our last podcast. So, in the four competitions, as we've already talked about, Liverpool won the League Cup over Chelsea on penalties. In the Premier League, we've had wins over Leeds United, West Ham, Brighton, and Arsenal. We've also won 3-1 over Norwich in the FA Cup, and then a 2-1 win on aggregate over Inter Milan in the round of 16 in the Champions League. So to start us off in this recap of these results, is there anything about the League Cup win you would like to highlight other than Cleveland Kelleher's penalty? Paul, do you want to get us started?
Well, I think just generally was the feel of the game was one where, we had big spells of control in that game, and while I think sometimes while in commentary it felt as if, oh no, Liverpool are under the cosh in this, we weren't really too bad overall, and you know. Did we create a lot of chances? Not necessarily. And we knew that was going to be the case against Chelsea, but it was just the kind of endearing and overall feeling, overarching feeling that we were going to win. I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but just whether it was going to happen in normal time, extra time, or penalties, I just felt for me that game was just going to be a game that we were going to win regardless, because it seems as if the feeling around the club has been this season. Right, we're going to make a real concerted effort for all these cup competitions, for the Champions League, for the league. We're just going to go for as many trophies as we can. And so I think in that game, it was really weird because I remember saying to someone, was it the day after, a couple of days after, but I was relaxed about it, even though at times the narrative maybe felt that Chelsea were on top for big spells. And of course, Lukaku scored the goal, it was offside, and just different bits and pieces. And so people made this topic of discussion about a high line and, Chelsea breaking the high line and getting through. And then you're like, but no, they didn't, because actually they were offside. For me, it was just one of those games where we were nicely in control, if not at our scintillating best, which is an overarching, I think, theme for the last couple of games. Even just generally, we don't have to play incredibly well to get the results, and so that the League Cup win was just kind of one of those. Yeah, it's really good, and like for Big Queeve, like it's just brilliant to see someone come through, and for the storyline of the goalkeeper scoring the winning penalty was just like, yeah, that's really really. It's really exciting. So no, that's my thoughts on the League Cup final. I don't know what you guys are thinking.
So for me, that was one of the rare games where I was a bit nervous during the game, but that mostly came down to the fact that we had a penalty shootout. So once we got to the penalties, I was a bit nervous because it always seems like it's a bit of a crapshoot, but then all 11 of Liverpool's guys took really, really good penalties.
Oh,
Lubo?
phenomenal.
Yeah, amazing.
For me, it just felt like a huge final, and Klopp talked about it, and a lot of the podcasts that were here after the game, and the podcast that Gags and Cam and Harinder had after the game, it just felt like a huge final. And what Klopp said recently is that in many ways to him it was similar in terms of emotions and excitement, and how he felt, how the players felt, to a Champions League final. And it felt huge. I think partly it felt huge because, again, it's been the first final in a while. Two is because I think it was Chelsea, and we have this annoying rivalry with Chelsea, and they've been tough to play this year, right? And just three, the game was so good, and so I in many ways I had, like Paul said, I had this belief that Liverpool would win at the end, but it was such a topsy-turvy game. It was such a great game with so many chances and offsides and VR decisions, and I have no idea how it finished 0-0. So just with everything combined, it felt like a huge final. It almost felt like a bigger final than what you'd expect for a League Cup. And so I'm very happy that obviously that Liverpool won it. I just didn't expect during and after the final to just feel so exhausted and to feel, wow, this was a huge final. This is almost like something that you'd expect, maybe the FA Cup, maybe the Champions League, that kind of a game. I wasn't prepared for the League Cup final to feel so big and so emotional.
Yeah, I think that the fact that the opponent was Chelsea, and then sort of the events going on in the world also added to the drama of the game. And so that just sort of added to the occasion, and then just made it feel so much better when Liverpool won. Like during the game, I thought that the contributions from Cleveland Kelleher were amazing. Just the way that he kept making like big save after big save, and then he comes up big in the penalty shootout. So it really was his final.
Definitely. At any time you see a team make a goalkeeper substitution with 2 minutes to go, you're going, dear Lord, like what's the deal with this? Kepa thinking that he was going to be, Mr. Great Penalty Saver, all the rest of it. One of the outstanding moments for me was Virgil van Dijk taking this penalty against Kepa, and Kepa giving him about 2-3 meters of space to put the ball in, and Van Dijk's just like, yeah, whatever, big man, bang, smacked it in the top corner and looked at him, just stared him down as if to say, yeah, you think you're good, you're not even close to where you need to be.
Yeah, that takes a lot of bravado to do what Van Dijk did there.
Yeah.
So moving on to the other games in our latest run, what have you found most impressive, Lubo?
I feel the defensive control And it felt coming even during in January with the League Cup games against Arsenal, which Arsenal were playing well at that time, but even beyond that, there was maybe that game against Palace in January where it was a little bit up and down, and even West Ham they had a couple of nervy moments, but it just feels that the defense and when I say defense, I don't mean just the back line. I mean that the team, all the positions, all the players, it just moved up to another level. I think we've just moved up to a level defensively over the next, I would say, 8 to 10 games that we last saw in that 18-19 season when ultimately ended up winning 97 points and got to the final in Madrid. And I just looked. I mean, the last 8 games, I think in the league, Liverpool have allowed 2 goals. And granted, there were a couple of goals were allowed in the cups. I think 1 to Norwich and 1 to Inter. But those are just those kind of a crazy screamers from outside the box. So
the last 3 goals that Liverpool have conceded are all like 5% or lower chances.
Which is crazy, right? So
Yeah.
the fact that we've been able to limit the big chances, and this is something that has been a huge improvement. But also almost it feels right now the only way you could beat Alisson is with this impossible shot from outside the box. That to me has been a huge a positive development and improvement. Because as Klopp likes to say, that gives you the foundation to everything else you're trying to achieve. And it feels just the games feel more controlled. We still score a lot of goals. We still create a lot of good chances. But it just feels now that level of control that the team had in 18, 19, 19, 20 before the pandemic, where they could just ratchet it up. They could create chances. They could score goals. And then they could just cruise and control the games. That feels back, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, the fact that Virgil and Joel are further removed from their injuries, the fact that the midfielders are now healthy. We have Thiago, we have Naby, we have Fab, we have everybody available. There's more rhythm. Again, there's a lot of reasons for that, but to me, that has been such a great, really improvement over the last couple of months that I think is going to hopefully mean that we can continue to win games across all competitions and add more trophies.
Absolutely. So, like you, I've been very impressed by the defense over the last 2 months or so. Like you're mentioning, like Virgil van Dijk, after the late January international break, that to me is when he started to look like the old Virgil van Dijk, and like he's actually getting closer to fully recovered from that ACL tear. And like just his movement, the way his body language is, everything looks like he's back to that guy. And then that has also coincided with a period where Alisson has returned to that, best in the world form, and just he's going to stop everything. So Paul, what about you? What's been most impressive to you?
I think what's most impressive is the ability to win games in different ways. So if you look at the Leeds result, there's 6-0. There's a relentlessness there of going and just keeping going, keeping scoring, and just seeing the goals go in. But then you look at West Ham, and it's a 1-0 win, and it's, as Lubo and you have said, it's that controlled nature of being able to control the game, get ourselves ahead, and then just coast the game out. I think we looked at some of the games and some of the stats in those games where, yeah, after we scored, we probably didn't create too many chances, but we also limited the opposition to very, very little. And so it's just that overall ability to win games in different fashion. And Arsenal the other night was just one of those examples of patience and just been in full control. I think Arteta said after the game that Arsenal were good up between the boxes, but they couldn't score and they couldn't defend in the boxes, and that was the difference. And maybe he's right on that, but I also think that we were incredibly well controlled against Arsenal. Took our 2 chances, and was that the only 2 chances that we had, really, with clear-cut opportunities on goal? But we took our 2 chances and scored them, whereas Arsenal didn't even get really through to make the chances, to make those opportunities. And so for me, it's just that case, that story of we can win with the high-paced relentlessness of Leeds. And I know Leeds are in a really bad place at that time, and one of the last games under Bielsa and lots of injuries, but we put them to the sword, so to speak. But then in the next 3 games after that, and I remember the discussions around the likes of West Ham and Brighton especially. Those are going to be tough games. West Ham are playing; they're in a good run of form. Brighton always gives us difficulty. Brighton always makes things hard for us. But really, when you look back at those games, we controlled them. We had no real issues with them. We've conceded 2 goals in the last whatever amount of games it is. We're able to win these games in different fashions and see the game out. So that for me is kind of like one of our big, one of the most impressive things in how we're playing at the minute.
Mm-hmm. And I think that what you're talking about there in the Arsenal game is a good example of a team that's competing for titles and a
Yes.
team that wants to be competing for something.
Exactly.
So Liverpool, when they have their chances, they take them. They control the game otherwise, and just do what needs to be done to win. And Arsenal just don't do that, and they don't appear to be close to doing that in games that matter. They can, they seem to be able to win against bad teams at this point, but they just can't do much against teams that are better right now. And so that's like sort of the emblematic of the gap between the two teams.
That's what sets us apart, really. From it's what sets us and City apart from all the rest of the teams that are in the chasing pack. Chelsea are probably the closest, but our ability to kind of see those games out. Okay, City's it's death by 10,000 passes. We're a bit different in how we control things, but that is the big difference between us all.
Yeah, absolutely. So, shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to ask you guys: are there any narratives that have developed that you think inaccurately depict reality? So, Lubo, do you want to get us started on that one?
So I actually thought about this, and I was trying to remember. I was trying to look back and see if we still had the high line narrative, and that seems to have died down a little bit. I think that ran its course, and then it died out. And I have not heard much about it. Now the narrative has shifted, especially after the Inter game at Anfield and the Arsenal game, is that that Liverpool somehow are dominated by these teams who are incidentally not really creating any chances. They're not really creating shots. They're not doing much in the dangerous areas, but they're just hanging out with Liverpool, and that means that they're dominating Liverpool, right? And it's one of those things where it's almost as if now the expectation from Liverpool has become that unless you're already up 3-0 at halftime against anyone, you're really struggling. And I think the game against Arsenal, and I would say Arsenal did quite well to control us in the first half, and I think we did quite a few good things to control Arsenal. The game at halftime was not, there hadn't been that many chances, that many opportunities, but it just felt like a very controlled game where, just almost like you're a boxer, you're the champion, you have a contender. First few rounds are just kind of a bunch of jabs as you're trying to find the weaknesses to land a couple of good punches. But the narratives then become, it almost feels like that unless Liverpool is ahead at halftime or winning convincingly 3-4-0, that they're really struggling, that they're really showing, just chinks in the armor, and they're open to other teams to take advantage of them. And I think that the two games, the Inter game, partly because of the result and all the chances that Liverpool missed, and then the Arsenal game because Arsenal, didn't capitulate in the first half. There's this new narrative about Liverpool, and I think it's pretty hilarious because it's if you actually watch the game and then you analyze the chances and you look at it from a statistical point of view, you just see that it's very much what we discussed earlier. It's about control. It's about Liverpool waiting patiently to take chances, to create chances, and fundamentally, they're just operating at such a high level right now.
Yeah, and if you watch the game with the commentary on, it's like Liverpool are barely hanging on, but then Liverpool wins every game. And it's like those two things, they can't exist at the same time. It's not like they're barely winning every game. It's like they're comfortably controlling the games and then they win because they're better than their opponents. But it does not seem that the media or the commentators like seem to believe that at all. So, Paul, what narratives have you noticed?
I'm not sure necessarily it's an external narrative. It's possibly one within, Liverpool fans around the Salah contract situation, and fans thinking that this is having some kind of impact on him on the pitch. And I just kind of find that a wee bit. I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me because I don't really think that is something that plays on a professional footballer's mind to the point where they struggle on field. Once they cross the white line, they're pretty happy just to go out and play football. And so I don't think that there is this idea that Salah's struggling on the pitch because he's trying to work out contract stuff off the pitch. For all we know, everything's done and dusted, and there's just a whole pile of media guff that's going on at the minute to create a story outside of it. I think was it the Inter game where he hit the post? Was it 2 times? And you're just
Yes.
kind of going like, he's so close to scoring. When he doesn't score in a game, people start making these lines and these stories that Salah's sidetracked by what's happening with his contract. His agents off or his lawyers off posting these emojis on Twitter. That means Salah's all over the show and he's not focused. And you're kind of going, that's absolute rubbish because he's a professional footballer. Once he crosses the white line, and even before he crosses the white line, when he's on the training pitch and all the rest of it, he's putting in the effort. He's scoring the goals in training. And he's providing a great input on the pitch. If anything, he's probably a little tired just from playing so much at the African Cup of Nations. But that's to be expected. And the beauty that we have now is 5 incredible forwards, plus then Taki and Origi as backup. We're not in any shortage that if Mo Salah needs to come off after 70 minutes, we're not in any shortage that we can bring someone else on, as we seen the other night against Arsenal, and make a difference. So I think it's just kind of it just seems to be a wee weird narrative that's kind of coming into play more so with Liverpool fans rather than everyone else. And I'm kind of going, don't even go there, folks, because the reality of it is it's not impacting them.
Yeah, and we've seen this multiple times throughout Mo's Liverpool career where he will have a stretch of 3 to 5 games where he won't score, and then all of a sudden the like scoring's back. And so like this is nothing out of the ordinary. It just so happens to like be coinciding with the contract negotiations and then the agent trying to like stir stuff up on Twitter. And so then I think that does definitely feed into some doubts in people's minds about what's going on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like for me, the things that I've noticed is like among opposition fans is like they all want to like find ways to pick at like, well, Liverpool's not actually that good. Liverpool's not actually that good. And like none of that is true. Like all of Liverpool's players are awesome and they're really good and they're better than every one of their players. So I think that there's just some jealousy.
Totally. Did you see was there an article in one of the papers that was trying to paint Man City as underdogs nearly? That, per Pep, Liverpool now have a squad that has more depth than what Pep has. And you're kind of going, right, okay, this is an interesting narrative. I'm not quite sure how we've reached that point.
Yeah, I mean, so Liverpool do have more depth than City, but that's because City have made some certain choices with their roster
Yes.
and then how Pep's decided to use that roster. But that does not in any way mean that City are underdogs. That's just
Exactly.
nonsense. So I think that's a good time for us to start looking forward to what comes next. Yesterday we had the Champions League draw. Liverpool will be playing Benfica in the quarterfinals, and should they beat Benfica, they will face Bayern or Real in the semifinals. In the Premier League, Liverpool have Watford, and then the big away game to City. And then tomorrow in the FA Cup, Liverpool play Nottingham Forest. So first I want to get your thoughts on the Champions League draw. So Paul, what do you think?
honestly, I don't think we could have got much better. And you don't want to sound overly confident, because to reach the last eight of the Champions League, you have to be a good team, and you have to have beaten good teams to get there. So let's not, by any stretch of the imagination, underestimate Benfica. But to avoid any of the English teams at this stage, and even in the semi-finals, I think we couldn't have asked for any more. And I don't think Bayern are necessarily the giants that they were a couple of seasons ago. And that season that we drew 0 each with them and then beat them 3-0, I think that season Bayern were kind of like tipped as possible favourites. And I think this season for us, if we can get past Benfica, then I don't see any reason why we aren't in the final. Now I know it's Positivity Podcast. I'm going to be positive about that because that's just my viewpoint on life. But I honestly think this is a great chance for us to go all the way to final, and I couldn't have asked for a better draw.
Yeah, I think that we've seen that Liverpool has played very well in Portugal against Porto over the years, and so that makes me feel pretty confident about the Benfica game. And I like the draw against Bayern and Villarreal because there's some nice callbacks to earlier European runs in the Klopp era. So Villarreal, Liverpool played in the semifinals of the Europa League run in Klopp's first year, and then
That's right.
Bayern was an opponent in the run, the quarterfinals in the run to the winning the Champions League in Madrid. So I like those draws. So Lubo, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'll just echo what you guys have said. I think coming into just the next round, if I think if you had polled any Liverpool fans, Benfica or Villarreal would have been the two teams that anyone would have wanted, right? And regardless of which models you look, 538 or Infogol or the bookies or whatever your model of choice is, you see that Benfica is I would say it's in terms of just statistical analysis and just talent level, the weakest of the eight. Now that anything can happen in knockout competitions. I mean, we saw Benfica knockout Ajax, right? And Ajax were dominant by the stats, so anything can happen. But I feel where Liverpool are right now, Benfica it's perfect. And then I agree with one of Bayern or Villarreal. I think they would both be. I mean, realistically, it's probably going to be Bayern. I think it would be a great semifinal to have. And I'm just glad, as Paul said, I'm just glad we avoided the English teams. I'm sick and tired of playing English teams in the Champions League. It almost feels like Champions League is where you want to play teams from Europe, teams you don't normally play, and also just for the fans that are able to travel, the away fans. I mean, if you have the chance to go to Munich or to go to Lisbon, and instead of that you have to go to like Manchester. I mean, come on, it just sucks as an away fan. So and unfortunately I won't be able to travel for those, but still I think it's great that we get to avoid an English team at least until the final. And who knows, maybe it will be. I was reading 1981. Was actually Liverpool beat Bayern Munich in the semifinals and beat Real Madrid in the final in Paris, right? So maybe who knows?
Wow.
Maybe it's going to be a repeat. Maybe it will be. Maybe it could happen this year again, right? But
Wow.
I don't think you could have asked for a much better draw and path potentially to Paris in May than what we got.
Yeah, it sets things up nicely. And then the Benfica game, I think, is on either side of the City game, and so having the lesser opponent in the Champions League does make that a little bit easier for Liverpool versus I think City have Atletico Madrid on either side of that game.
Yeah. No, it works out from a schedule perspective really nicely because the first game is at Benfica. It's after the Watford game, and I think if anything, it allows you to potentially go there, and even if you don't win it there, to at least come back to Anfield with a draw. But I feel confident that Liverpool can go there and win. But then that's on Tuesday, and the Man City game is on Sunday, so there's plenty of time to rest, and hopefully Trent can be back for the Man City game. So from a scheduling perspective, it couldn't have really happened much better.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we look at the title race, so do you guys have any fears about the City game? Paul, you want to go first?
An easy game. I definitely think that we can go there and get a result. That's without a doubt. I think City will be as fearful of us as we possibly could be of them. And having played Atletico, days before, and with Atletico the match after, there's definitely going to be something in their heads about that's going to be a tough week, and so I think for us, looking forward to that, there's no reason to necessarily doubt that the boys can't go to Etihad and get a result. I know it's not been the best ground for us in the last number of seasons, but I'm completely convinced that we can go there, get a win, and push on and win the title.
Yeah, so the like recent history is Liverpool's last win at the Etihad was in April of 2018 in the Champions League. And since then, it's been losses or draws. I think that last season was a 1-1 draw towards the beginning of the season. So that was after Van Dijk got injured, but before Gomez and Matip got injured. The title season was after Liverpool. I think that was the first game after Liverpool clinched. So then
Yep.
the guys were still hungover. And then the year before, in the season we got second, was the time we lost 2-1. And so it's been a while since Liverpool won at City. So I definitely think they're due. For me, this is like the one game that I will actually be nervous during the game, just because City's the only team that is close to Liverpool's level. And so I think that there's no doubts that Liverpool can win. It's just, they have to go and do it. So Lubo, what are your thoughts on the City game?
I think that incidentally, I think that how the City game could go may depend on what happens the weekend before, because we're playing Watford first at home, and I'm hopeful that we could beat Watford. And obviously, it's Roy Hodgson coming back and wanting to throw a spoke, throw a wrench in our spokes, right, in the wheel. But I think we're going to win. I think Liverpool should beat Watford comfortably, which then would mean they could move first ahead of Man City. And then Man City go to Burnley. And normally Burnley are pretty terrible at home, and Man City has historically won fairly comfortably there. In fact, most big teams have won it at Burnley. But given where Burnley is right now and how desperate they are for points, if perchance with tons of luck and maybe Weghorst can score a worldie of some sort, if somehow City drop points at Burnley, we could be going into the game at the Etihad where Liverpool could be a point ahead, or if I have my math right. And so that could then determine to a great extent how Klopp approaches it, how Pep approaches it. It could then end up being a very, very nervy 1-1 or 2-2, the way sometimes these games go. But I think I have to remain positive. We have to think that with the way we're playing right now, the way we're able to control games, even against a City, the game at Anfield, the first half, City were they had the initiative, but then at the end we were just super unlucky to just finish 2-2 because they scored that deflected goal by De Bruyne, and then at the very end, somehow Rodri was able to block what was just a ridiculous opportunity, ridiculous shot by Fab. And by all, honestly, if we're honest and if we're fair, Liverpool should have won that game at Anfield. So I'm just hoping we get the luck this time around, the luck that Man City got at Anfield, that we get some of that luck and we're able to win. But even a draw, honestly, even a draw there, especially depending on how the results before that go, may not be the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, like, getting a draw would not end the title race. No. It would make things more difficult because then everything would be in City's hands. And so definitely getting the win would be like far more advantageous. I think that we've seen City struggle to play from behind, so getting the first goal will be very important. And I think that that is also what you're talking about. If so, when Liverpool beat Watford, they will go ahead of City, and then the City players will know they're from like fighting from behind, and like that could even play on their minds somewhat, at least back of their mind during the game against Burnley. And so we'll see. I think that it is definitely there for Liverpool to win against City.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's also take a quick look at the FA Cup game. Do either of you watch the champion? Anything about Nottingham Forest?
I've watched them. Did I watch them last week?
No.
But I think they're doing well under, is it Steve Cooper, who was previously with us as one of our coaches. So I think they've definitely come on a lot since he took over. The same as any team, they'll play well, but we should have plenty to dispatch them.
Mm-hmm. So what are you guys thinking in terms of how Liverpool will line up? Lubo?
I think Klopp will go strong. One is that he has everyone available. It's the last game was on Wednesday, and then there's international break. And even from an international break perspective, there aren't that many big international games. I think Mo and Sadio have the big ones. The rest, I think maybe Scotland
Robbo.
Robo has a big one, right? But beyond that, I think the rest of them is just Virgil and some of the other guys, the Hendo and some of the other ones. I think even Brazil, they're technically still playing World Cup qualifiers, but they have already qualified. They have clinched first place in the group in South America. So even then, if some of our players need to be rested or subbed off early, I think it'll be doable. So I do think Klopp is going to go very strong. One, because he can, and I think second, he just really wants to take this competition seriously. The fact that he said this is Alisson's competition. Yeah. Alisson is going to start, and the fact that the last game was on Wednesday, so there was time. We're definitely going to see a much stronger team, in my opinion, than we saw against Norwich City in the last round. Obviously, some of that will depend on availability. Obviously, Trent is out. Most likely, Mo may sit it out because Klopp mentioned his foot. He felt his foot again. It's a question of who is going to start at center back, if maybe Joe is needed for right back. But regardless, I expect a very, very strong team, and I expect just the players to be very committed to go there and do a professional job and just advance to the next round.
So, Lubo, did you say that Alisson was going to start instead of Kelleher?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's what Klopp said.
I missed that. I was definitely expecting Kelleher to be the one in goal. But yeah, similar to you, I'm expecting a very strong lineup. I will be interested to see if Minamino or Origi or both get a start. They've been so good in the cup competitions this season that it would make sense to start them. But it wouldn't surprise me if we saw like Jota, Firmino, and Luis Diaz.
Or one of I could see one of Taki or Divi starting. So again, I think my attack was right now is Diogo, Bobby, and Taki. And also, I think it would be just almost unfair to Taki to just bench him because he's been so good in the cups. He scored both goals against Norwich City in the previous round. He just seems to just have that ability to. Every shot that he takes goes in. It feels like it, except for that one shot.
Is that not the stat in the League Cup? Every shot he took, he scored.
I think every shot on target he scored because he did sky that shot against Arsenal in the semi-final at home. Remember in the 90th minute when he hit it over the bar. But I believe that is still the stat that every shot that he has put on target in the cups has gone in. So that is quite the stat. And especially if you have questions about Mo, you want to keep him out, and maybe Luis, who has played a lot of games already, you just have him as an option on the bench with Divi and Sadio. So, but the good thing is there are 5 subs in the FA Cup, so Klopp will have options to change and give. I fully expect him to make all 5 subs, maybe 2 or 3 at 60, and then 75, and then 85, something like that. Especially if we're leading comfortably and just wanting to control the game.
Hockey stats are 21 shots, 7 goals, and 7 goals from 7 shots on targets in the cups.
Incredible. That's great. Yeah. I think we'll also see Naby probably start tomorrow. I'd assume that maybe Curtis Jones.
Absolutely. I agree. And then I think it opens up quite nicely. Obviously, it'll depend on the draw. We'll actually know the draw. I thought it was after the game, but actually the draw is going to be right before our game. So going into the game, we would already know who is going to be the semifinal. And I'm hoping that somehow Chelsea and Man City, if both advance, somehow they get paired in the semifinal, and we get the winner of Crystal Palace and Everton. And just that way, you just keep avoiding Man City and Chelsea as much as possible. I mean, they've been lovely because it's just been we've had the luck with these draws. Why not? And just we'll see obviously what happens with Palace and Everton. The way I know Everton had this huge win at home against Newcastle, but I think they're going to struggle at Palace. Palace have been just very, very good. They're playing very well. I wouldn't be surprised to just see Palace run out a comfortable winner tomorrow. And so I think if the semifinal ends up being Liverpool against Palace and Man City against Chelsea, I mean, you just can't script it any better. I just hope I don't jinx it now.
Yeah, let's not worry.
Yeah, I think that's probably about a good time for us to come to a close. So, Paul, can you give us your final thoughts and any plugs you want to make?
Yeah, final thoughts are let's just keep positive, keep believing that the quadruple is on and that we're going to go and do this thing, and keep believing. The usual plugs, if you're not a subscriber to Anfield Index, then make sure that you pay your money for it because it's well worth getting. And the next podcasts that are coming up are always worth listening to.
Absolutely. Lubo?
You plugged it already earlier, but I would also just encourage people to try Discord, AnfieldIndex.com/Discord, and just join. I think it's a fun community. I don't remember Discord being as positive as it is right now in quite some time. So it's all good, except for maybe once in a while the game chat goes in flames. But it's a really good community. Really good people, and you'd have the opportunity to listen to these podcasts live and ask questions if you'd like for if you're a subscriber. And beyond that, I also just think that this break comes at the perfect time, not just for Liverpool, but honestly for fans. It feels that the games have been relentless. Every three days there has been a game. Every game has been huge. And I just hope that after tomorrow we advance in the FA Cup, and then just have 2 weeks just to unwind a little bit and just recharge. Because after that, it's going to be, I think, 16 games in April and May across all competitions, 16 possible games, and every single one of them is going to be huge. And I hope that Liverpool play every single one of them, because if they do, that means they would make it to at least the 2 finals and possibly be up there at the end of May for the title. So let's just remain optimistic and continue to support the team. And as Trev Downey likes to say, just be kind to your fellow Reds.
That's a good good place to come to a close. So be positive, and until next time, up the Reds, up the positivity Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.